Hi, good evening. I'd like to welcome you to Poem Praise 2. I do thank you for tuning in, and peace and blessings be upon you and your family this evening. Now we are going to get right back into For Men Only. We are in chapter number, which chapter are we in? Let's see. Well, personally, I'm in chapter number 4. Before this channel, we are on chapter number 2, okay? Excuse me. And this is going to be the first take of chapter number 2, which is entitled, The Deal Is Never Closed. Why her I do will always mean do you, and what to do about it. And it goes like this. Even if your relationship is great, your mate likely has a fundamental insecurity about your love. And when that insecurity is triggered, she may respond in ways that confuse or dismay you until she feels reassured that you love her. Think of the deals you've struck in your life. Your first car, your first real job, your first house. You saw what you wanted, did what you had to do to get it, and you came home with the done deal. No deal compares to winning a wife, though. You pursued her with all the creativity and resources you could muster, and the deal was done. Your wedding day was a day you proved your love to the world and to her. Divorce stats to the contrary, I bet, since you're reading this book. Your marriage feels like the most obvious closed deal in your whole life, right? Well, not exactly. As well explained in this chapter, it just feels closed for you. No, your wife isn't still out looking for other suitors. But in an unusual and powerful way that married men don't really understand, your wife doesn't feel permanently loved over the marriage papers. Excuse me, not over, but permanently loved once the marriage papers are signed. Yes, she knows you love her. But there are periodic times when her feelings need to be convinced and reassured. The truth about I do. It's no surprise that women need to feel loved. What is a surprise is that the buried inside most women, even those in great relationships, is a latent insecurity about whether their man really loves them and whether the relationship is okay. This sense of vulnerability may usually be under the surface of their minds, but when it is triggered, most women show signs of distress until the concern is resolved. You can read show signs of distress as drive their man nuts if you want. Buried inside most women, even those in great relationships, is a latent insecurity about whether their man really loves them. Fact is, you're going to see, as I did, that many of the things that perplex or even anger us about our wife or girlfriend are signals that they are feeling insecure about our love or the relationship. For example, have you ever wondered why your wife asks, "Do you love me?" even though you done nothing to indicate you changed your mind about loving her? In fact, you just told her you loved her this morning on the way out the door. Take your need for space or cave time as an indication that you're upset with and trying to get away from her. Wants to talk about your relationship, especially at the times you least want to. Seems to turn critical or pushy for no reason you can figure. Gets crabby or excessively emotional and seems to push you away, but is unhappy or angry when you stay away. If you're like me, you react to these seemingly unrelated behaviors with confusion and frustration. You become convinced you never know what she wants and could never please her if you did. But our research for men only has persuaded me that every single one of those behaviors is related, and many are easy to resolve. Once you've clued in, you'll see those drive you nuts behaviors as red warning lights, signaling a breach in your wife's confidence about whether you really love her. You'll see those drive you nuts behaviors as red warning lights signaling a breach in your wife's confidence about whether you really love her. I know it sounds crazy to you that your wife might ever wonder whether you love her. But it turns out your I do actually didn't bring permanent emotional closure and put her mind at rest about your feelings for her forever. For her, your I do doesn't erase that insecurity about your love that lives under the surface in even the most happily married women. An insecurity that, when triggered, becomes a deeply felt uncertainty. Do you still love me? Are we still okay? Now you might be thinking, surely this doesn't apply to my wife. She knows I love her. Yes, she probably does. But we're not talking here about what she already knows logically, but rather about the feeling that rises up when something has triggered it. Even otherwise secure, confident wives find that this latent, does he really love me? Insecurity is relatively easily triggered. And it is this feeling that we need to take seriously. Having gotten so much input from women, I now believe that if men can get clarity on this hidden insecurity, we'll experience a lot more understanding, peace, and pleasure at home. Let's begin with looking closer at the mystery. 3 surprises. What never a done deal feels like to her. As a token embedded male for our surveys and focus groups, I was in for a number of big surprises on the subject of women's relational triggered insecurity. My first surprise, how frequent these feelings are. Whereas most guys coast along rarely thinking about the health of their relationship, for most women, that is unthinkable. 7 out of every 10 women said their relationship and how their man felt about them was anywhere from occasionally to nearly always on their minds. Fewer than 20% said that they wondered about it only when things were difficult. Just 12% never thought about it. Under what circumstances do you think your relationship, whether it's going well, or how your husband, significant other, feels about you? Choose one answer. It's sometimes I'm conscious of most of the time, 19%. It's often occasionally in the back of my mind, 50%. Only when we are in a really difficult season of our relationship, 20%. Never, 12%. Because of rounding, totals slightly exceed 100%. Okay? I'm guessing that for most guys, occasional thoughts about the closeness of our relationship might boil down to birthdays, anniversaries, and when something goes drastically, obviously, haywire. But when we ask women, they meant by occasional concern about how their man felt about them, I often heard that it meant several times a week or whenever it was triggered, such as by what we might consider a relatively minor spat. We checked these results by asking the question another way and got an even stronger response. 4 out of 5 women acknowledged sometimes feeling insecure about their man's love and their relationship. Among women under 45, the percentage jumped to 91%. And among those with children in middle school or younger, it was almost universal. I realize us guys can understand this foreign seemingly insecurity if we compare it to one of our own. As one woman put it, you know that your record that's always running in a guy's head about providing. Well, we have the same fundamental concern about our relationship all the time. And if it's not going well, it can mess up everything else in our lives. My second surprise, how intensely painful these feelings are. Almost every woman I asked says she cared about her man so much that when this relational insecurity was triggered, it was very painful, sometimes almost debilitating. Yes, that's the word. And it became difficult, if not impossible, for them to get it off their minds. As several women put it, when we're at odds, nothing is right with the world until it is resolved. On the survey, 3 out of 4 women agree, saying that this "does he really love me?" concern left them feeling preoccupied, emotionally withdrawn, depressed, or affected in other visible ways. Look at the data. When you're feeling insecure about his love or the relationship, which of the following are true about your feelings? Choose all correct answers. I need reassurance, 44%. I might become quite preoccupied until I get that reassurance, 20%. I withdraw emotionally, 32%. I become depressed, 28%. It affects other areas of my life, 34%. Total answering one or more of the above, 74%. It confirms my suspicion that I'm not very lovable or not worthy of his love, 10%. I feel like I'm not valued in his eyes, 26%. Nothing helps. I just need time to process, alone, 9%. Total answering one or more of the above, 82%. I never feel insecure about his love or the relationship, 18%. You and I have every right to think that the woman we love shouldn't feel insecure. We're faithful. We go to work. We do love her. And we're still here. But just because we think our wife should feel secure doesn't mean that she always does. Which leads to my third realization. Just because we think our wife should feel secure about our love doesn't mean that she always does. For number 3, my third surprise, how resistant to logic, i.e., my logic, her feelings remain. And that does complete this take, so stay tuned when I come back to you with take number 2 of chapter 2. for men only, the deal is never closed. So until next time, I want you and your family to be blessed and have a wonderful rest of the evening. Till next time. Later, y'all.